Welcome, 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 finally. Of course, it wouldn't be a tech event with some tech difficulties. So apologies for everyone running around for the last 10 minutes being very confused. As developers, I'm sure you'll all be very used to the experience. So yeah, React.js Girls, number 27. My favorite number, my favorite age. So this is a really special event for me, and I'm really excited for tonight's speakers. I've met them all, and they're all really, really cool. So I'm excited for you to also meet them and to hear what they have to say. So I'm going to just introduce myself. My name is Beth. I'm an engineer at YLD. Basically, I love React.js Girls, for very personal reasons. I actually went to a React.js Girls event way before I joined YLD, about 6 years ago now. When I was straight out of boot camp, I was really nervous. I didn't know if I was ever going to be an actual developer. And yeah, I just found it really inspiring seeing 3 really exceptional women get up on stage, talk about what they were passionate about. And it was that moment when I didn't just think oh, maybe I'll go and do this. I thought, oh no, I am definitely going to do this. This is who I want to be. And now here I am. So if any of you are just beginning your journeys as well, feel free to speak to me after the event. I've got loads of passion for it. And I'm really proud of YLD for continuing these events. 6 years later, still doing it and rocking them. So React.js Girls, obviously the whole point of it is to elevate female speakers who work in tech, generally an underrepresented group, less so now, thank God. And we won Most Impactful Contribution to the Community in 2022. So if you see any of those awards again, feel free to vote for us again. Tonight's agenda. We have 3 really excellent talks coming up. So code reviews, something that we are all passionate about. Web Speech API, some of you have probably never heard of it, which is the whole point. And React hooks, the old and the new. I'm particularly excited to, speak to people between the talks as well. So we have a break after the first 2, which is going to be 30 minutes. So we'll meet just outside, back down where you were before the meetup. And we can talk there. And then, fortunately, when we wrap up at 8:50, we also can use that space again until 10. So no one has to run around trying to find the pub, which is great. So if you want to scan this barcode at any point, there's a slide later that has it bigger. Then you can use this to ask questions after each event. You can also ask your question in real life. We can run up to you and find out what your question is. Or you can just enter it onto the Slido and then I can ask it for you. So if you're shy, then yeah, both options are available. These are our hashtags, so you can find them on Twitter or, I suppose, X. So feel free to tweet us on there if you're excited about being here. So code of conduct. Be a nice person, obviously. Don't do anything that you wouldn't ordinarily do. And yeah, the QR code, you can leave your questions on. It's called sly.o, Slido. And all of these links are also contained in the QR code. So if you go there, it's basically the one QR code to rule them all. So if you're curious about anyone, about us, about React.js Girls in general, all of these links can be found using the one QR code to rule them all. You can also see all the recordings from previous talks, some of which feature speakers who are here tonight, and one of which even features me. So yeah, you can also find out about YLD and our openings. So speaking a little bit more about our openings, we're going to have Maria from YLD give you a very quick tour de force of what we have on offer right now.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Because I don't have
that
just fancy mic. Okay. So thank you, Beth. As Beth said, I'm Maria Luís. I'm at the talent team. I work at YLD for 2.5 years now. And I just wanted to quickly brief you on what we do. As some of you might know by now, we focus on helping our clients build and improve their products, mainly on software engineering, product design, and data science as well. I don't want to bother you with all of the details, so we thought it would be a good idea to basically give you a practical example by explaining you what we've been doing with one of our clients. Oh, and this is basically, you can go to our website as well, and you can check the About Us page, where you can find a bunch of different examples as well about our work, previous projects, and also current projects as well. So the example that we have here for you tonight is Ledger. So we have been working with Ledger for a while now. They have a hardware crypto wallet that basically allows security and self-custody within the crypto realm. As part of a plan to grow their business, they needed to elevate their current React Native initiatives, along with taking in new technologies also. So basically, YLD partnered with them. We came into the picture to help them get closer to their growth objectives by supporting them in many areas, but particularly in creating web apps that operated independently, functioning within a React Native app. So the main goal here was to simplify their giant monorepo and streamline integrations within their services. So basically, we help them to split up core services into independent web apps and backend services that run across platforms. So in this case, web and mobile. And we also set up new CI/CD pipelines. The project is still ongoing, but so far, some of the things that we were able to achieve is that basically their cross-platform web is now independently maintainable, which means that they're now currently able to roll out features seamlessly, second language, and quickly. Many more cryptocurrencies can be easily added to the platform now, and all of this obviously without compromising their security, which obviously is always one of the main concerns, not just for crypto, but for any kind of product, service. But yeah, I mean, this is just one of many examples. It's still an ongoing project, and a very interesting one, if I might add. We do other things. Obviously, we work with other industries, but don't want to bother you with the details now, because the speakers have much more interesting things to say than I do. But obviously, if you want to have a quick chat afterwards, just to explore a bit better what we're doing, we are also obviously, we have tons of different projects and clients. So as you can imagine, we also have an ongoing hiring situation. So if you want to speak with Beth about her user experience at YLD, or if you want to know a bit more about the current projects that we have, obviously you can always have a chat with myself or Alex at the end of the event. But yeah, I mean, that's it from me. Back to you, Beth.
Feels weird clapping my own company, but they are great. Our second sponsor is Sainsbury's. Obviously, that's where we are tonight. So please give them another round of applause for a brief intro.
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Cool. Yeah, so I'll give a brief intro, and everyone's trying to get onto the talk, so it won't be too long, I promise. But yeah, welcome to Sainsbury's. We're pleased to have you here. So my name is Rosie Wardman. I'm going to be introducing Sainsbury's today. I'm an engineering manager here at Sainsbury's. I look after a team that sits within our product data domain, which is part of our commercial teams. So I've been working at Sainsbury's for coming up to 6 years now. So I originally joined Sainsbury's on our graduate engineer program. So I've worked through a number of different roles, from sort of graduate engineer, senior engineer, and for the past 18 months as an engineering manager. So I've seen kind of the great opportunities that you can have here at Sainsbury's working through a number of different teams. But I'll talk briefly about that a bit later as well. So at Sainsbury's, food is really at the heart of what we do. So we just launched our new strategy, which is we make good food joyful, accessible, and affordable for everyone every day. So we're really focused on being the first choice for food, but alongside that we have some other missions as well. So loyalty everyone loves, more Argos more often, and save and invest to win. So that's kind of our taglines. So you might know Sainsbury's as a supermarket, and that might be the only brand you know, but actually there's a lot of other brands that sit under here. So we also have Nectar. So Nectar, including Nectar Prices and Nectar 360, is our loyalty program, and it powers our collaboration with 500 plus big brand partners. We've also got Argos, famous for convenience, all the different choice, and great value. 2 is our fashion brand, so we offer online experiences both on Argos and Who and Habitat for those. And Habitat, we offer high quality, affordable furniture. And Smart Charge is our newest offering, which is our electric vehicle charging business. So I don't know if you've been to any of our supermarkets that have this, but you can go in and do some really speedy charging if you have an EV vehicle. So Nectar's a really great example of where we're powering that using technology. So through Nectar Prices for you and for everyone. So I don't know if you've been into store, you might have used some of our Nectar Prices where you've got better prices on your food and things in your shop. And it's powering our loyalty experience. And we've also built alongside that Nectar 360, which is the marketing platform that enables us to deliver more value to our customers. So underlying all of that is technology. So for Nectar, that tech stack is spanning React.js, Swift, Kotlin, Java, Spring Boot, AWS, Kubernetes, and ML workloads used with Apache Spark as well. So there's a huge amount going on underneath the hood there. And we also have some of our initiatives that Nectar powers too. So you might have seen Smart Shop, and which is built in-house. So when you go and scan, and as you're doing your supermarket shop, that's all built in-house by our engineers. We also have groceries online. So our groceries like purchasing online proposition that sits within 300 of our stores. And as I've mentioned as well, the Nectar Prices. So again, it's powered in-house and provides you with Sainsbury's offers and things like that. And actually, we use machine learning to generate that, so you should be getting around 10 offers a week, which equates to around 130 million personalised offers. So there's a huge amount of kind of data underneath all of that. So obviously, technology is key to all of this, and hopefully from kind of the brief intro I've given you, you're kind of seeing some of the breadth and scale of the work we do here at Sainsbury's. And we have about 740 permanent engineers, and alongside our contractors and working with our partners as well to deliver all of this using a wide range of technology, not limited to the stuff that you see on the screen, but these are some of the key kind of like front-end ones that we're using. We're also working a lot with AWS as well, and we also develop our apps natively using Kotlin and Swift too. So we are hiring for roles, so we would love to talk to you about the roles we have on offer. We have exciting roles at staff and principal level, as well as our kind of usual engineering roles. So we have offices here in London, but also in Manchester and Coventry. And we do have roles open at the moment for Node, for React, for Next, Java, .NET, lots of different things going on there. So if you would like to talk about any roles here at Sainsbury's, please reach out directly to James. But I'm also around, feel free to talk to me. And we've got quite a lot of other Sainsbury's engineers here today who'd love to talk to you about, well, both what it's like to work at Sainsbury's, but also what the roles that we have open, sorry. So yeah, without further ado, I'll vacate the stage so you can have what you came here for, is the talks. So thank you.
Thanks, Rosie. Just imagine you could work in this beautiful building. Yeah, and thanks to Sainsbury's for allowing us to use this really quite epic space. And so next up, we are going to speak to AWS. So Anna from AWS is going to give us a few words and then we'll move on to the talks shortly afterwards. So if you give her a round of applause.
Lovely. Hi everyone. No, thank you all for coming today. I'm really proud to kind of be here and sponsoring this event. So Sainsbury's are one of our kind of top customers here in the UK, and we love to kind of get involved with anything that they do. And YLD is obviously such an interesting, important organisation. Yeah, I'm really glad to be welcoming you here. So if any of you don't know who AWS are, we were born from Amazon. So Amazon realised that we had to build data centres to serve our customer base. But during Christmas, Black Friday, times where we had really, really high peaks, what we noticed is that we were just really, really heavily over-provisioned. So we were building for all of this demand, but on quiet days and quiet weeks, we had spare capacity left, right and centre. So one of the individuals within our business, who's actually now CEO of Amazon, thought, why don't we offer this out to customers? You can rent our servers and make use of the technology that we're not using, so that you don't have to build for a very kind of top peak at your site, and instead you can we can start leveling it out and offer a scalable service. So we developed the cloud. So whilst the idea of renting out server space wasn't new, what was new was the idea of enabling customers to empower themselves. So organizations that were doing this before were typically, building data centers and kind of, renting out that space. Rackspace, who I previously used to work for, is kind of the prime example of that. But what Amazon did that was a little bit different is we allowed customers to do this, themselves. You don't have to interact with us. It can be as much or as little as you like. We are handing you our technology. We are handing you our kind of, business understanding, all of the really useful knowledge that we've acquired, and we're allowing other organizations to run with that. So what that's led to, essentially, is a truly global business. So we have offices, availability zones, regions all across the world. As you can see there, a truly kind of global presence, and it's something that we're really, really proud of. This enables us to help our customers innovate. So you might be familiar with a couple of the customers here, such as Netflix, Epic Games, Coca-Cola, BMW Group. We also do Deliveroo. So we've really supported Netflix, for example, in being able to offer a platform that can grow at speed and at pace, and can grow globally without having to worry about, hitting kind of limits as it gets, as they're waiting for their data center to grow. There we go. And how do we do that? So we did this by focusing on the right of things. So AWS and Amazon, we lead a culture of innovation based upon our leadership principles. And they cover things such as deep dive, earning trust with our customers, being frugal, bias for action, and being truly obsessed with our customers. But within the past few years, we've realized that doesn't quite go far enough. An organization of our size needs to actually think about how we engage with the world at a much wider level. So we've added strive to be the world's best employer, which is around obviously making sure all of our employees are really happy. And also just the fact that scale brings broad responsibility. So we recognize that as an organization, we need to do more to help girls in tech. We need to do more to help people who are neurodiverse. We need to do more to help develop, reducing our carbon footprint, not only just in AWS and Amazon, but also within our customers as well. So by focusing on the right things, and it enables us to build the right teams. And this is really, really, really key. So if you look at research from McKinsey, Harvard Law School, kind of, anywhere you look, the research is all saying the same thing. What builds good teams is purpose, like having a very direct purpose, having psychological safety within that team, but also having diverse teams. And that's the number one important thing. If you don't have a diverse team, you're going to miss things, you're going to fall into pitfalls that other people would have been able to predict, and you just will not be as impactful. There's plenty of research showing that if you want innovative work, you want to be able to develop quickly, you need diverse teams. So on that note, we're really, really proud to be able to sponsor events like this, to be able to get involved in events like this and just support in any way we can, not only in AWS, but also more widely within the community. So thank you all for being here today, and we're really proud to be sponsoring you.
Couldn't agree more, obviously. Yeah, I like to think we have very shared values in this case. So now, moving on to some of the meat. code reviews, right? So which of you today have either read a code review or, sorry, not a code review, a PR or written one? Hands up? I'm included, right? So this is something we can all relate to, at least on a weekly basis, if not on a daily basis. I wish it was a daily basis. But so, yeah, like having already discussed today's topic with Sophie, I'm really excited for her to share some really incredible tips and tricks for something that we have to contend with on literally a daily basis. So Sophie is a full stack engineer here at Sainsbury's. She's a computer science graduate, but she didn't let that put her off permanently from computers, and then she went on to do another 20-month graduate engineering scheme here at Sainsbury's, which seems to be, a really fantastic program. And yeah, she's currently basically been inspired by that process to be more passionate about mentoring and inclusivity as well, which is another value that we share. So I'm going to pass over to her to allow her to get into the meeting.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm going to be reading off some notes potentially from here and clicking through there. So 2 seconds. Okay. Just double check that works. Fab. Okay, cool. So, hi, I'm Sophie O'Donnell. As Beth said, I'm an engineer here at Sainsbury's. So this talk, I wanted to share my top tips and some tools that you can really make the most of your PR reviews, or code reviews, sorry. So today we'll be talking about, I'll give you a bit of insight into my journey. Also, we're going to talk about the purpose of a code review. Why do we do it? There's going to be an opportunity to review my latest UI PR, which is a bit scary. Going to introduce you to my really great approach that I take when I'm reviewing code, how we can give feedback as part of that process, and then also dispelling some of the myths and misconceptions of PR reviews. So, a little bit about me. I appreciate Beth's kind of giving me an introduction, but I'm going to just talk a little bit more about me. So I started at Sainsbury's about 10 years ago, which is really scary. I started working in stores. So I worked in stores whilst I studied at college and then at university. And then after graduating from a computer science degree, I didn't really enjoy programming, if I'm really honest. I didn't think I was particularly good at it. And I didn't know what to do next. So while I was figuring out those next steps, I continued working in stores. And then this is where I came across the engineering graduate scheme at Sainsbury's, which I thought was a fantastic opportunity. 20 months to work across 3 different engineering teams. And you're really encouraged to choose teams with different tech stacks, just like give them a go, see what you fancy, see what you like. So then once I completed the graduate scheme, I chose Pay It Browse as my forever team. And I'm still there today. So Pay It Browse is responsible for the self-serve kiosks in Argos stores. So we allow customers to search, browse, and pay for their products. And across the UK, we have about 7,000 devices that we manage, which I think is fantastic. It's really cool. Also, what's really cool about our team is that we're responsible for the UI, the backend, and the hardware. So you get the opportunity to work across all those different techs. But my passion is the UI. And also, I guess, to touch on our UI is a React web application as well. So that's why I'm here. So let's get into the meat of the talk. Why do we do a code review? So generally, as an engineer, you'll have a ticket you'll be working on, and then you'll make those code changes. And then as part of that process, we'll have a review. And this will be done before we contribute that code back into the repository and then release it to production. There we go, cool. So the goal of a code review is to check any new code for bugs, ensuring it aligns with the quality standards set by the team or the wider organization, and then also to encourage collaboration amongst team members. And then Git is the most popular control version control system to date. And so this is often where a code review will occur. So for the rest of the talk, I'll be mentioning PRs, which is a pull request. So just as a heads up. Okay, so can I get a raise of hands? Would anyone be interested in coming up on stage and reviewing my latest UI PR? No? Okay, cool. I see no hands, which is what I was expecting. Oh, Beth. No, I'm sorry, we clocked in. So this is exactly how I felt when I started as an engineer. You know, we're taught about agile methodologies, you know, good coding practices, how to write tests, how to deploy our changes to production. But no one really tells you how to perform an effective code review. So initially, I found this incredibly intimidating. I didn't have much experience. I didn't know where to start, and I didn't really know what to check for. And I also see other engineers starting out their careers with those same worries and concerns. So don't worry, I've got you covered today. So I'm going to share with you my approach to reviewing pull requests, and you just need to remember one word, and that's great. So glance, run, evaluate, assess, and test. And so this is just a simple acronym you can remember when you come to review any pull requests. So let's get started into what they all stand for. So first, when I come to a pull request, I'm going to glance at it just to check that it's actually ready for review. I'm going to look for any initial indicators that might suggest that it's not ready. So first, we're going to look at GitHub Actions. Are they passing? Are there any issues with linting or any test failures like we can see on the left-hand side at the top? Also, is the base branch up to date? Or do we have any merge conflicts? And again, we're having a few issues on the left-hand side, but it's okay. Also, as part of this, I would check if the author has self-reviewed their PR. So as part of that, I'd look for any console logs, any leftover comments, any to-dos, like we can see in the right. And I did that the other day, so it's okay, it happens. But I guess if I would see any of these at all when I'm initially reviewing a PR, I'd just reach out to the author just to give them a chance to like double check through and amend any changes, make any amendments, sorry. So then also when I'm reviewing a PR, I'll keep an eye out for a couple of these things in like my PR checklist. So is the title like clear? Do we include the ticket ID? Does the description provide like some insight into the changes as part of the PR? Also, do we have a link to the ticket? Because as a reviewer, you might want to go and check out that ticket. Check for any acceptance criteria. As part of these changes, have there been any modifications to styling? So are we including any screenshots or recordings of those changes? Just to draw the attention of the reviewer. Also, have any testing guidance been included? So for example, in Pair Browse, we're responsible for the whole customer journey. So if I make a change on the payment confirmation page, which is at the very end, I would include information on products that the author can search for and the steps that they would need to take to get to that payment confirmation page, just in case they want to run through the code themselves and understand what's actually happening. So I, as someone that contributes code, I always try to include these elements when raising a PR. And so something that can help with this is Git PR templates, as we can see here. And this helps to just standardize your PRs across the team. It also acts as a bit of a reminder to include all that necessary information. So I really recommend checking it out. Next, we go to R, which stands for running the code. You know, this allows you to manually test those changes and to ensure that it's as expected. And this is really useful for me as a reviewer because then I can properly understand what's changed. And then I would normally try and break it at this point just to make sure that we're catering for all those scenarios. Because a lot of the time we focus on the success, but we don't necessarily cater for when it doesn't go as expected. And that's really important because we want our customers to have a really good user experience. So now that we, at this point, have a good understanding of the changes in the PR, we can head on to the next step, which is E, and that's evaluate the ticket. So understand what is being asked of in the ticket. So I would look at, so you'd be able to, at this point, compare that against the functionality that you tested in the previous step. And you can also check for any specific acceptance criteria that you need to look out for. So then now we have a sound idea of what has changed, which means we can then progress on to the next step, which is to go back to our PR and assess the code. So we're going to step through then the logic and like the changes to the components, to the methods, any styling. At this point, I wouldn't look at the tests, and I would leave that for another step. But another useful tool that I've come across recently is the GitHub Dev Editor. So if you're looking at a PR and you press the full stop button, this would produce this view. So you can view the changes within the context of the code, step through and navigate as you would your local VS Code, which I've found really useful. And what's even better is that this supports Visual Studio Code web extensions. So you can utilize those when you're reviewing your PR. So something I found useful recently is a spell checker, because my spelling is awful. So if I've got something that can highlight this instead, perfect. So I guess also other things that I would look out for while I'm stepping through that code would include these. So readability, is that code easy to understand and comprehend? And is it easy to follow? Naming is a key element of readability. Have meaningful names been given to your variables or methods? Put yourself in the shoes of a new joiner. If they were to look at the names, does that make sense for them? Or are we assuming any previous knowledge for the developer? Architecture, have they considered the file or folder structure? Also, have components or methods been constructed in a way that they're reusable? And then error handling. So like I touched on a bit earlier, so a lot of the time we're focusing on those successful paths and we're not catering for when things don't go as expected. So other things I look out for in our team would be TypeScript type definitions, the use of state management, accessibility. So I really recommend pairing with someone on a review. You can then share the things that you look out for. And this was, an example of this was when I was talking with Beth the other day. She mentioned that if you come across a use effect in a PR, you'll try and rewrite the code without that use effect, which I think is incredible. And then it got me thinking, so I now have added that to my checklist. So share it, share the knowledge, and that's the whole point of a pull request. So now that we've assessed the code, we stepped through it, we're happy with it, we then go to test coverage, which is our final step in our acronym. So do we have good code coverage on our unit tests, integration tests, end-to-ends? If you have visual PERSI testing, have they been updated? And then, it's good to keep in mind that good test coverage will help us prevent any issues being pushed to production later on. And I guess for me, as someone that contributes code, I aim to write all my test names with the given when then scenarios. And I've had some feedback on the reviews saying that it's really detailed. It helps when you're reviewing the code that you can just glance across those test cases and you understand instantly what those tests are looking for. So that was a whistle-stop tour of our acronym, but we've gotten to the end. So next time you're reviewing a PR, just remember GREAT and step through those processes. So now that we've got an idea of an approach we can take when we're reviewing a PR, what we can look at next is how do we give that feedback, which is a really key element of that code review process. So we're going to start with be clear and specific. Clearly articulate your feedback, pointing out the changes that you are suggesting for improvement. But most importantly, include why are you suggesting those changes to be improved? link to documentation, because the whole purpose is for the author to learn from this and to understand why we're making these changes, and to keep that in mind going forward. Also be respectful. Provide feedback in a constructive and respectful manner, and focus on the code instead of the engineer behind the code. Be careful, put yourself in the shoes of the author, which I think is really important. If you are the author, there have been many automated GitHub emails that have popped up in my email box, and I've kind of dreaded looking at them. There'd be one eye open just to see all that feedback. And then also be timely. Be timely in that feedback you give. We don't want PRs to be hanging around for days. Let's get them reviewed, get them merged in, and we can get on to the next thing. Also be positive. I think a lot of the time we will look at PR and we'll pick out the things that we think could be improved. But I think what's so important is to highlight and celebrate the elements that are done well. We should be cheering each other on, highlighting when the code has been written well, innovative solutions, put yourselves in the shoes of those people. Put yourselves in the shoes of the author. You probably want to get that really good feedback. And then finally, be collaborative. Get involved with PR reviews, as it's a great way to learn and knowledge share in the team. Okay, so now that we know an approach to reviewing codes, how we can give that feedback as part of that process, let's talk about myths and misconceptions of PRs. These are all things that I thought at some point in my career. So you shouldn't ask questions on a PR. Absolute lies. If something doesn't make sense, pop a question. Maybe it means that the code's not very well written. And if you're thinking it, someone else is probably thinking it. So don't be afraid to ask questions. And then only senior developers should review code. Again, completely wrong. Engineers at all levels should be contributing to code reviews. It's a great way to learn. And also, it's important because we need those diverse feedback. That's how we're going to improve our code. And then thirdly, you need to catch all bugs. Not possible. As part of the PR review, if you approve a PR and then someone comes along and highlights several issues, that's fine. It doesn't reflect badly on you, and that's why we often will have multiple reviews required. And then fourth, we have you should only give feedback through comments on a PR. Yes, that's the main way of giving feedback, but it's a real skill to know when to take that chat offline. Context can be missed when you're responding to comments, so sometimes it's just easier to have a chat and bring that to life. And then finally, if you introduce a bug into the codebase, you will lose the trust of your team. Not true. Could people raise their hands if they have introduced a bug themselves into production? Lovely, lovely, cool. It happens, and it's okay. Just remember that it's gone through that review process. Other engineers have looked at it, they've missed it. It's also how we learn from it, how we improve our test coverage. And just remember, you fail and succeed as a team, so you're all responsible. And that is the last myth today. And then that is it for the talk. So remember the great approach when you're reviewing your PRs next. Utilize that PR checklist for when you're reviewing PRs, and also when you're raising your own PRs, and maybe come up with your own and share that amongst your team. Also, really important, be mindful when you're giving feedback. We're all human, and we all care about the code. So yeah, just keep that in mind. And things go wrong, and that is how we grow. So that is all. This QR code is a link to a GitHub repo, and it's just got some tips for or some VS Code extensions that I've used that help with when I'm developing. A couple of other Reacty things to look out for when reviewing a PR, and some other things. So feel free to check it out and contribute your suggestions as well, and then we can share them around. So that is all.
You're going to have to stay up here for a couple of questions. So think of your questions now. I'm sure some of you have got any. Anyone got a burning one right now? Think about them. Think about them. Oh, yes, we do. Yes, nice. We do. Off to a great start. So I think we actually do have a roaming mic, which is fantastic.
Hiya. Great talk. I was wondering, in your PR example, you showed you had screenshots. Do you use a specific software, or it's just like a basic, simple screenshot?
Yes, great question. I use a Mac, so I just use the screenshot application. It's really simple to use. So yeah.
Okay, great.
I think over there.
Louise had a question, I believe. The elegant run of that.
Thank you, great talk. I'm not an engineer, so I thought it was fantastic because I understood it. How long did it take for you to get to this confidence level in reviewing?
That's a really great question. So I think at first I was scared of everything, to be honest, when I started out. I was scared of creating PRs and writing code. I'd say maybe 6 months once I started to be like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's really important just to get involved, add questions. It's okay if you make a suggestion and it's not something that someone takes on. That's fine, I'd just say just get involved and pretty much just get involved, really. And you'll learn. And also it makes you a better developer as well, because you're learning from other people in your team and seeing what they're doing. Just get involved.
That's so true. Yeah, I love the kind of community mindedness there. Yeah. And just remembering that we are all on the same team.
Exactly.
Working towards the same goals. And I loved the idea of just opening a dialogue as well. If I've got more than one question on a PR, I have to start a conversation either on Slack or preferably a Zoom call or something.
Yeah, that's a piece of advice I had while I was on the graduate scheme was if say I've reviewed your PR, I'd then reach out and be like, let's have a chat, let's bash out these comments together. I obviously have the context, I have reasons why I put those comments, so I can explain them to you in a call. And that just helps speed up that whole process, because there have been times when people put comments and I've been like, I think this is it. I'm just going to make those code changes, push up to the PR, and then I'm going to wait for that person to then recheck it. Whereas if you get on a call, you can bash them out and talk it through together. So.
Exactly, and make sure that you actually understand, you have the full understanding of what they're saying. So it's almost like giving them even more respect for their comments that they took the time to actually leave on your PR, right?
100%.
Yeah, I saw the little comment that was quite low down on one of your slides that said, consider pairing. So I was like, let's bring that up again. Yeah.
Definitely, because so as part of the Jumpstart scheme, you have rotations across engineering teams. So we'll have, we've had engineers in the past that have been on that. So they've expressed similar kind of feelings to how I was feeling when I started. And so I was just like, right, let's pair. I'm just going to show you step by step what I would do and what I've kind of put into this acronym. And I think it's just a fantastic opportunity. They can ask questions, they can kind of see why you're making those changes, making those comments. So I really recommend it. And also, if you can explain something to someone, you've got a good understanding as well. So it's a win-win.
And it's hard to get the right tone across sometimes as well. I think one thing that I remember you mentioning earlier was having a strategy for how to indicate how important your comments are.
Yes. Yes.
What was that strategy again?
Well, it's something I saw online because so it's a low gaff rating, which is level of give a flip. Just in case, which I think is really cool because you don't want to nitpick everything. And sometimes the comments you make are going to be your personal preference. So for me, I'll normally be like, oh, this is an optional comment, so it's up to you if you want to take it. And like this, I'll still explain why I think it's worth it. But other people have used a low gaff like response, so they'll be like, oh, this is a low gaff rating, which is another way to suggest if it's optional or not if you take it on. So
it's like low gaff 1 would be.
Yeah.
This is just me noticing something and saying it aloud.
Yeah.
Low gaff 5 is like, you actually need to change this right now.
I really care about this change, so please consider it.
I really want to use that work.
Yeah, I think it's quite fun as well, doesn't it? It promotes a bit of a discussion in the team. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, rather than, the word nitpick can be a bit controversial.
Yeah.
Great. So I think you can all join me in saying that was great. Does anyone else have a question? Yes, one more question. Yeah.
What are your rules to actually merge a PR?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a controversial one.
Yeah. So I guess I would.
Okay, let's simplify this a
Yeah.
little bit. In terms of, okay, how many approvals? Oh, thank you.
How many approvals? With how many approvals do you merge a PR?
Yeah. So I guess so in my team we do 2.
Both for I would say developers, or let's say if you have a QA in your team,
Yeah.
does the QA do the review or at least the approval?
Oh, so we're unfortunate we don't have a QA.
That's fine.
So we all the engineers are responsible for testing all the changes that they make. So I guess it's like a standard. We say 2, but if so for example today I had approvals and then I had to merge in like a test update or merge in something quite minor, and then we were like, oh, it's okay, we can accept 1 because the changes since the approval is quite minimal. So yeah, I think standard 2, but it depends on the scenario. Maybe 1.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah, that's a good one. Does anyone else? Yes? Well, we're all on the same team.
Sorry, I feel bad. I'm just sit here as well.
Yeah, so basically, I have a question. It's actually might help me. So at Sainsbury, do you have? Does it work?
Yeah. Just hold
Test,
it.
test.
If you hold it like chest.
2 inches.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not experienced with that. Cool. So basically, at Sainsbury, do you have any tools that would prevent you from creating a PR? For example, let's say something is missing in the template, or there is a console log, because I'm reviewing PR and I'm like, but there is no Jira ticket.
Yeah.
Like, how am I supposed to understand something like this?
Nice. Oh, fair. That's I get what you mean. That's so I guess as you can have the pre-commit hooks that you can run locally, depending on how your project's set up. So this might include like linting that could check for any console logs or any imports that aren't used. So we've gone through like a big change in our team of the CI/CD. So we've moved everything to GitHub Actions, so we have that visibility. But yeah, definitely like talk it through with your team, see if there are some opportunities to improve it. Recently, Sainsbury's we have a trial with SonarQube, which is a great automated static code analysis that we run as part of our pipelines as well. So there's lots of opportunities to automate it as much as possible. So yeah, open up, have a discussion with your team, see if there are any that you could use.
Thank you.
Yeah, everyone makes mistakes, right?
Yeah, and it reduces like, the job for the reviewer if there's things that you wouldn't then have to like pick it out either. So it's quite nice when a tool does it for you automatically.
Exactly. We're humans. We're not just like automated linting bots.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why I really liked the bit you said about the templates and how important they are, because it reminds you as the author to remember to do things. I think a feature GitHub has is that you can add like checklists on the pull request template, and if the checklists are not all ticked, like you as the author, you actually tick it yourself. But like if they're not all ticked, that can actually block it from even opening as more than a draft PR.
Nice, that's really cool. I wasn't aware of that. So. Nice, because we've had pull requests that have been raised with nothing on them. And you're like, okay, this is cool. I'll just try and figure it out myself. So I think it's really important when raising PRs that just put as much information as you can in as possible, because you want it to be as simple so that they'll review your PR and then you can merge it in. So, and it'll keep them happy as well, so it's always good.
Very
Yeah.
true, very true. Great. Time for one more question, if anyone has one? No? Okay, well, in that case, please join me in giving a very, very welcome. Oh. No, gonna have to go back. All right.
Do we have any idea how this one would be plugged in, this laptop? It's not plugged into anything right now.
I think it's just going to plug in with this. You see this? That's
I will figure it out.
okay, great.
Closer to me, so...
Yeah, I think you can switch them over once it's time for that one. Yeah. Okay.
This one, right?
Yes, exactly. So I'm just going to briefly, introduce you. So Anna's an incredible front-end developer. She works at Hactar, which is focused on like tech for good. We had a really great chat the other day. She's already got 11 years of professional experience. Started off working on fan sites, which is how I know that she's also a fellow fan of the Rasmus. Had to squeeze that one in. But we don't have any time to burn, so I'm just going to let her get on with it.
Oh, wow. I'm so impressed. That's like one of a song title. I'm like, oh my god.
She's going to demonstrate that she's not like the other girls with some fun experiments with the web speech API. So thank you very much.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all sponsors, and thank you for ReactJS Girls for inviting me to come over this evening. I am going to try, I know we're a bit behind, so I'm going to speak as fast as possible. So today I want to unlock fun experiments, and we are going to be exploring the web speech API to do so. So a little bit about me. Thank you so much, Beth, for the introduction. I work as a front-end developer at Hactar. We are a tech for good agency, and I spend most of my free time on my blog. I don't have any other hobbies. I also am a very keen member of the indie web community. The indie web community is about promoting the idea that you should have your own personal website, and I love that idea. That's all I'm about. I've written about it in the past. You can read my articles on Smashing Magazine, for example. And for this talk in particular, I need to highlight that I do not represent any browser vendor. I'm just hanging out. And I haven't been to karaoke since before the pandemic, so I'm out of practice. And I'm a big fan of the Rasmus. I'm not a stan, I'm just a fan. And it's because of them that I'm here. So I had a problem that I needed to fix. So whenever I went karaoke, they only had In the Shadows available, which is like a top tier song, but it's not my favorite, and I needed more. And I figured out, like, okay, so I could build my own karaoke. I could pull up the instrumentals, pull out the songs, and do my own party, etc. And then my brain started like, woo, what if we had more than just lyrics on the screen? What if we could gamify the experience? Because I know I would win. I know all the lyrics from my heart. That's why I was like, oh my gosh, Beth, oh my gosh. You bring up like song titles from my favorite album, Dead Letters, 2003. So I looked up speech to text. And I came across a bunch of private companies, which is great. Like nowadays, if you want to like pay someone or pay a product to annotate what you're saying, there's a bunch of companies that will offer that service to you. But I know we have something for free in the browser. So let's talk about the web speech API, and in particular, the web speech recognition. So the web speech API is split into two, the web speech API and the speech synthesis. And it's starting to get really obvious where I'm going to go with this. But in particular, the web speech API was developed so that it would give the ability to developers to allow people to submit dictation into form inputs and to allow specific control for people to navigate in web pages. In fact, there's a very, very old yet super interesting draft on how this API was envisioned to work in forms, and you should have a look because it gives really, really nice examples on how you can actually make the web more accessible. Yeah, so it's not built for karaoke. However, here's a fun note. So on MDN, you can read a note that says, on some browsers like Chrome, using the speech recognition on a web page involves a server-based recognition engine. Your audio is sent to a web service for recognition processing, so it won't work offline. So here's a quirk. It won't work offline. You can't like spin it up locally unless you are connected, unless you are online. And fun enough, it also needs HTTPS to work. So if your spinning a local server is not enough, you have to like something that I couldn't figure out how to do, which is like to get the whole local to do HTTPS so that it works. But it's not the end of the world. We can work with this. Safari gives you a similar warning. Once the first time you experiment with this API in Safari, it will tell you, speech data from this app will be sent to Apple to process your requests. This will also help Apple improve its speech recognition technology. So the websites you visit may access speech recognition. So it is learning from what you're giving to the browser. You say OK, and then you never see this ad ever again. It's done. So what is the speech recognition support in our browsers? So it currently does not work in Firefox. And it's starting to look a bit obvious on the why. If you think about it, other browsers, they are big corporations, they're part of big corporations. So they have a lot of data that they can train on, and they also have all the servers and the facilities to process that data. Safari works in a bit on a different level, but in the end of the day, I don't represent any browser, and this is based on what I'm looking up and reading online. However, there is an incredibly interesting thread on the Mozilla standard positions where they discuss on why it's not in the browser yet. It includes privacy concerns, it includes a bunch of things that are incredibly interesting if you want to know how browsers make the decisions they do in regards to browser APIs. So if this is a topic you're interested in, have a look. So I had a change of heart. I'm not going to do the demo right now. I want to walk you through my thinking process. I'll go back to the demo after this. So let's envision a karaoke thing. We don't have to have design skills because anything you do will be better than your local bar. So let's start with a simple purple gradient and a start and stop at the bottom because, browser API quirks. You'll have your controls, it'll start, it'll stop, and I added the real-time transcription so that you can see that I'm not cheating. And we'll load our audio, and we'll load our lyrics and our whole JavaScript file, whatever it is. And bear in mind, I'm showing snippets because otherwise it's a lot. So we'll initiate the speech recognition. Depending on the browser you're using, you might need to have different types of initiation bits. We tell it to show the interim results, which shows it doesn't. The way the web speech API works is that as you're saying, it is processing it. So you might be saying something and then it figures out, oh, it turns out you mean something else, and it changes the code. So it's fun. I like it. So we'll show the interim results. Set the language to English, Great Britain. We'll create an HTML element to spit it out. Have an event listener where as soon as you got something, tell me, and I'll just get the transcript and show it. And this is very, very fun. It's not fun. Majority of the browsers have realized, oh, hang on, if someone opens their browser and it's doing the speech recognition, they just leave for the day. You are constantly capturing data and consuming energy on our servers and our data, and you're just using us. So they figure out that, oh, let's just stop it then. It's after a few seconds, we'll just stop the recognition altogether. But we have a way to cheat it. So as soon as we have an add event listener, oh, once you end, we'll start again. You're not getting away with it. You're going to listen to me whether you like it or not. So this is a trick. And on mobile, if you actually are testing on a mobile phone, it's quite frustrating because you will hear a little notification sound that says, it doesn't say anything. It's just a sound of turning the microphone on and off, and it's really frustrating. So let's just stick to the desktop version for now.
we'll ignore it. We're exploring the potential anyways. It's not a done deal. We'll add our lyrics in a similar fashion to how subtitles would work. We'll have our text that starts at 5 seconds and ends at 11.2 seconds, and we are defining where the lyrics should turn up during the song. And what will be the logic? Okay, so when the speech recognition is initiated, the song will also start. And we'll check if the current time falls between the start and the end of that lyric line. If yes, let's add a class showing that is the current lyric line. In this case, I picked a yellow animation, which translates into something more or less like this. Nowadays, because we sort of abused this during the MySpace days where we would have autoplay music, the browsers are like, no, you have to actually have interaction to play audio. So we have an event listener that starts, it clicks, the recognition starts, our music play, and then on time update, which is something that the browser gives you, oh, this audio right now is at 5 seconds, for example. It picks up on each lyric, checks the current time, the song line start, and does the check we mentioned before. And if so, adds the classes that we want or not. And then a lot of frustrating things happen. If the current time is bigger than the end time of the lyric line, we'll add a class that marks that as the past. And then we'll move on to the next line. Okay, this is the line in progress, this is the line in the past. And once that line is in the past, we'll do some checks. Let's compare each word. I thought, well, if we're going to gamify it, we got to check if everything that I'm saying matches what it is expecting me to say. So it picks up the transcription, goes word by word, and it adds styling based if it's a match or no match. And it inserts it in the HTML in the view that we see. And we also do partial matches, but that's a lot more complicated. But I'll make it simple. Right, so let's go for our demo, which it's a bit of anything can happen. As we were having some tech issues, I was the embodiment of tech issues. Which one do you think it is? This one, all right. So this is a USB-C, so let's plug in.
I think like it might not work without this.
Oh, it's fine. Oh, God. Oh, no.
Should we try that? Do you have any?
Oh, yes, of course.
Oh, no.
No. Oh, goodness. Oh, okay, hang on. Oh, God. Let's do a refresh because I'm not confident. A hardcore refresh, please. All right. So, I want you to know that I'm not cheating. So, I want you all to see that what I'm saying is actually appearing here as I say it. So, this is not like cheating. So, the live stream API works. Look at this. Yeah, it turns up. Not perfect, but it's okay. It's okay. We'll get there. We saw this. We all believe me. So let's go for a little demo. You'll be amazed how I am stressed right now. So if we do a hardcore refresh like you mean it as I say it, I'm going to show you that what I'm saying should ideally be gamified and match what the song is expected. Unfortunately, I obviously would have used a Erasmus song, but copyright doesn't let me, so Twinkle Twinkle Little Star is the best I could come up with without being sued. That said, my audio is not working. Oh no. It's okay, technical issues. The audio is not working and it's not the end of the world. Is the HDMI cable enough to do the audio bit?
I'm wondering if this one would help.
Bear with me, everyone. Because it was working before, but it's not the end of the world. There's worse things in the world right now.
Do you want to try it before?
No, this one is just the clicker.
No, yeah.
Right. It's okay. We'll go through it. So, Twinkle, twinkle, little star. So it means my CSS should guide me through, assuming it works. Hey! How I wonder what you are. And it's going to be wrong because I've been saying stuff. Oh, yeah, here we go. Up above the world so high. Like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. How I wonder what you are. Right, this worked. We didn't have sound, but we'll just imagine it. It wasn't that big of a deal. I'm so glad you all clapped right now because I'm going to sing next, and that's like really bad. So as you can see, if I say the words it expects, it will mark, okay, that's what I'm expecting. Yes, okay, mark as green. And if it picks up, if it does a partial match, it does highlight that thing, it does work. I see how it works with singing, and I'm so sorry. I'm so glad we're going to a break after, and I suppose there's still drinks outside. We're not going to forget about this. It's being filmed, but we can edit it out. I feel like a TikToker with this. I'm sorry. All right, so if we do a hardcore refresh, to stop it. Okay, let's start again, and we'll see what happens if we do the exact same experience but singing. I don't know anything about singing or music, but sometimes the words sound more connected, and that may alter the experience. So pretend you're listening to audio. Okay. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Hey, I won my own game. Funny enough, in different demos that I've done, and this is actually on YouTube, some of them, when I say like a diamond in the sky, sometimes the web speech API thinks that I say Michael, and those things happen. It's like it picks up something, but maybe I sang this thing so many times that Google's like, oh, I learned from you. Well done, woo! Right, let's do a switcheroo. So I'm sorry, everyone, we didn't have audio, which would have added a bit more to the experience, but these things happen. It's not the end of the world. Oh, God. Hey. We are in React.js, girls, so what about React? Actually, initiating the API would be very similar, because it is a browser API rather than framework-related. But if you want to spin a very, very quick example, it wouldn't look too dissimilar to this. You would import React, you would have return your HTML, whatever you wanted to do. You have a button that starts listening, and it picks up the transcript results and can put them into your view. It's not too dissimilar to using vanilla.js, which is what I did. But with React, you probably can import like really fun transitions or do other things that is a bit more, it's about a lot more labor in a vanilla JavaScript. So what is the verdict? It's okay for small voice notice. The other thing I noticed is that there's no punctuation, and if I insert, I'm Portuguese, so if I say a Portuguese word in the middle, or even my own last name, it just like, no. It doesn't deal with it very well. My demo went so well, I'm so glad for myself, but usually my demo does not go well, so it's usually not perfect for singing. It's usually not perfect for singing, and it's unlikely to be okay for rap. And the reason why I bring this up is that I'm not the first person to experiment with this API. A lot of people have been doing incredibly fun experiments with it, and one of them is Tony Edwards, who did a fantastic talk called Beats, Rhymes, and Unit Tests, where they experiment if they could jot down the rhymes that they've been working on. And unlike today, which was perfect, they also noted that it does have, it's not perfect, but it is a good experiment to have. We can also see this example by Stephanie Eccles, where they built a web speech API for the 12 days of web dev, which is like a fun project they have with different exercises leading to Christmas time, and they built a Santa chat for it. And Wesbos also has a chapter on the native speech recognition on their free JavaScript course. It's a fantastic course for free, so people should definitely check it out. There's also plenty of other projects. The web captioner was a fantastic project that was quite popular during the pandemic to provide captions based on this technology. Has been sunset since. However, the code is available on GitHub if you want to learn more. And there's also so many polyfills WebRTC projects. That stuff I have no clue about, but I thought I should bring it up because it's also, oh yeah, AWS, here they are. It's an AWS polyfill. And they also provide their own services on speech recognition. After all this, what's next? I don't know. Like I said, I don't work for browser vendors, but I would like to see these. I love these type of APIs. I love that we can experiment in the browser, especially for free. And the other reason why I bring this up is that you can contribute, even if things, for example, like I mentioned, it's not available currently right now in Firefox, but you can contribute to other projects that probably have a similar nature. There's a Common Voice project where you can donate your voice, or you can actually listen to voices and test and contribute to the community like that. It's very important so that different accents so that we can train on different accents and different voices, and it's a very, very important diversity aspect of the community. And this is to highlight the Web Speech API sibling, this speech synthesis. Leonie Watson made a fantastic talk on a call to action to improve voice interfaces and CSS speech. It's a fantastic talk, it's really enlightening, and this is what meetups and conferences are for, is to highlight what developers think that, not just developers, like what the community thinks it needs, and we all have a voice in it. So, the real question is, are you going to use the Web Speech API at work? Probably not. But it doesn't matter, in my opinion, because look at what we did. We have one working demo. We experiment with a browser API and HTML media element. I wrote lots of JavaScript. I had content for a talk. I experimented with CSS animations, and I read it and had to try to understand API specifications, which is stuff I don't normally do in my daily job. I wrote more JavaScript for this than I do in my daily job. And why does this matter? Because you can learn by building useless things. I would have not have played with this thing at all if I was just sticking to what I have to do in my daily job. Your project doesn't have to be an NPM package. It doesn't have to be an open source package. It doesn't have to be something you monetize it. You can have fun by building something that you deem useless. And only recently I gave myself permission not to build productive things after work. So if there's a takeaway from this, is that I'll see you all at the next tour. And please build. Your ideas are not useless. Whatever they are, just build them. Have fun. That's what the web is for, and that's what the community is here for. Thank you. Oh, yes, of course. Have the highlight for me.
Exactly. Amazing.
Exactly. Should I leave this here? Or? Yeah,
just leave it. Yeah, it's okay. That was really fun, and I hope reminded you all to keep having fun with technology, because I know it's the day job and can get a little bit much. But yeah, fantastic talk. So I had a couple of questions myself.
Oh,
think of your own questions, if any of you are burning. But first I'll tell you a brief embarrassing story, which
oh, I love those.
was just that, so one thing that this reminded me of is that it's really easy to forget about the web APIs as a React developer. Like, I work in React all day. It's kind of like a tiny bubble within a bigger bubble, and you can forget about all these free APIs that have already been built. And I once spent, it was at least 2 days, trying to figure out from scratch how to build a form that could upload, it could accept like a PDF as an input, before I remembered eventually that the file system API has already been built before.
Exactly.
And you just need to get back into JavaScript sometimes and out of React. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I think it's a really good reminder. And related to that, I was wondering, are there any other web APIs that you think deserve a special mention that you've used
I
before?
feel like we haven't, and this is probably a controversial take, I feel we haven't used Canvas enough.
Used what?
Canvas.
Canvas.
Canvas HTML
Yeah,
element.
that's very true.
I've experimented with it to use the Canvas element as a fake Photoshop to reproduce. Anyone could upload their own photo and it would apply this visual effects of the style of the album of one of my favorite. Yeah, I like bands. I don't know why. So I built a tool basically that online anybody could upload their photo and it would literally apply the exact same styling as the album cover of this artist in particular. And that's exactly what people do. They don't have Photoshop. They are not going to pay for licenses. And I think it's an underutilized HTML element.
Nice one. Yeah, maybe your next talk.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, so has anyone here used the Web Speech API yet? You have?
Yeah.
Do you have any stories you want to share?
I used it quite a long time ago.
I've put you on the spot here, so thank you.
Yeah, I used it about 5 years ago at uni. I was doing my digital journalism masters, which obviously had like 2 or 3 coding modules that I kind of just thought, probably I won't like them. And during a module for critical social media practices, where I wrote an essay about kind of like safety and security in the home and like technologies that we used, I built my own AI assistant called Alex, which obviously has no vague similarity to any other AI and vocal assistant that was like pandemic themed. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
And then spent a lot of time like thinking about like security measures and stuff like that too. But yeah, a long time ago. So it was nice to see it again, to be honest.
Oh, great. Thank you for sharing.
Nice, yeah, it's another good use for it. Yeah. I really like that you use DuckDuckGo, by the way. Security is clearly an important factor. So do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing to give like the audio data to the web browsers?
If you're consenting, like I have consented, I do appreciate that the Safari's warning is quite clear and on what they're doing with your data. So if browsers do that, I think people can make their own decisions.
Yeah.
The same way the Common Voice project, it's somewhere where people donate their voice, and I think that's great. I think if people are deliberately given permissions, I think that's absolutely fine. I think it's important that people have options that are not just private companies. I can change my mind tomorrow. As of today, that's my opinion.
Yeah. No, I mean, sometimes I accept cookies because I am shopping for something and I want them to just give me adverts for it later down the line.
As long as an informed consent, I'm fine with that. Oh, fun fact, I was like, I said a few bad words while practicing my talk, and it came out with censored them.
Wow.
And I was like, oh.
Child friendly.
Oh. So that was interesting. That was
Doesn't just always autocorrect it to duck then?
No. It just like put the first letter and then a couple of dots, and I was like, oh, you know what I'm saying? Oh, you. Oh.
That's cool. Yeah, and doing it in real time as well. So yeah, really impressive API. And I didn't do the AI thing as well. So yeah, I hope that you guys can also check out Anna's previous talk, which is on building personal websites.
Yes, yes, exactly. I gave a talk at ReactJS Girls pre-pandemic. I don't have memories of anything pre-pandemic, but it's about creating your own blog, which is obviously as an indie web person, I'm very keen on motivating people to create their own personal websites and their own blogs. And it's quite an oldie, but you know.
A goldie. Like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I'm gonna have that in my head all night. So yeah, please give Anna a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Dara is going to talk to us about hooks, right? Like hooks are really an integral part of the way we do React these days. And I'm really excited to hear more about not just what she's learned over the last 5 years of being a front-end developer, but also what she's learned about the latest changes in React. And it's really interesting because I find Dara's journey interesting as a front-end developer who's been working in just the front end, but wants to go back to doing some full stack stuff. She's now a full stack developer at Spotify, which you might have heard of. And so I'm going to be probing her afterwards for a little bit more detail about the transition to full stack and how that was. But she's also a very creative person, as I could tell from the fact that she didn't just have one good idea for a React.js Girls talk. She gave us 3. So we had to like whittle them down. It was painful. So yeah, look out for her coming back again, I hope, to do some of the other brilliant ideas. On the side, she's also an aspiring tennis pro. So if that or the hooks capture your interest, then feel free to corner her afterwards for some more chats. So please join me in welcoming to the stage, Dara.
Okay, this works. Hi, everyone. Thank you for that intro, Beth. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I will be talking to you today about React hooks and looking at the old and the new. Before we get into it, a little bit about me. So I work at Spotify as a software engineer. I've been there for about 1.5 years now, and basically work very much behind the scenes. So if you know the Spotify product, I have nothing to do with the actual app. And I work on with a team that manages backend services that like allow internal teams to access user account data. Outside of work, I like reading. That's the last book I read, would recommend. I also enjoy any food-related activities, so whether that's eating, cooking, whatever it is, I love food. Traveling, and also aspiring tennis pro. And then I also love just being outdoors and in nature in general. So on to the talk itself. Today, I'm going to start off talking about why hooks exist in React, and then looking at some of the most common hooks that we use. I'll also briefly talk about custom hooks, and then finally, the new and shiny stuff, React 19, and what they've recently introduced in terms of hooks. And then I'll close off with some comparisons and conclusions between the old and the new. So let's get into it. So if you've used React before, you will know what this means, class versus functional. And I can't explain why hooks exist without looking at the comparison between these two. So when React was first introduced, they started off with class components, which were basically very chunky components that relied on JavaScript's ES6 class. They had their own internal states, and they also had lifecycle methods, like component did mount, component did update. And then React decided, let's introduce functional components. And these were basically just plain old JavaScript functions. They didn't have their own state, and they were a lot easier to write. And essentially, the creators of React decided that they needed a way for functional components to be able to access React features like React states, React lifecycle methods, and we'll look at a few of those lifecycle methods in a second. And that is when hooks were introduced. So a hook is basically just a function, a JavaScript function that allows us to access React state and React lifecycle methods. So when a component is rendered on the page, how do we access data, how do we fetch data, and things like that. And yeah, just a little bit about why hooks are amazing. Firstly, yeah, we don't really need class components anymore because hooks help us with hooks, we just need to write functional components and we can access state. And then also better performance. So there are multiple hooks that are used to memoize, which is just like cache data and make your React application faster. We can also create reusable hooks, which are custom hooks that essentially have one specific purpose. And then it also makes it a lot easier to test and organize your code. So this is a quick comparison between class and functional. As you can see on the left, the left is significantly longer than the right. The left is a class component, which still exist in React, but aren't necessarily required. And then we have the functional component on the right, which is a lot shorter and just easier to get your head around. So hooks. The very first hook is use effects. So again, if you've used React before, you've definitely used use effects, and it gives a lot of developers headaches because of what is called the dependency array, and that is basically, so if you have a web page and you want data to load as soon as you land on the page, you would use use effects. And that allows you to fetch data, and it also is great because it essentially puts all of those React cycles into one. So this is a quick summary of what a component render cycle looks like. The component is first mounted, and then whenever any of its states or props change, it updates. And then finally, if you navigate away from a web page, for example, the component is unmounted. And so with use effects came the ability to be able to have all of those cycles within one single hook. And so you see there, it takes in a callback function, which is what is called as soon as your component is loaded. And then it has a cleanup function, which is the return function. And finally, whatever you put in your dependency array will update your function whenever its value changes. So that's a great benefit of this hook, except that it comes with just making sure that those dependencies are relevant, making sure that you put the right values in there so you don't lead to infinite loops, and also just like making sure that you use any conditional logic. So if this happens, then do this. Otherwise, you find that your component just ends up in an infinite loop. And then the next hooks we'll be looking at are pretty similar. Again, if you have a web page that has a lot of expensive functions, so say you're loading 100,000 values once you land on a page, you don't want to keep loading those values every time if they don't actually change. Otherwise, your component is just going to keep rendering, and this leads to performance issues. And this is where these two lovely hooks come in. So this is a quick example of useMemo. useMemo essentially caches a value, and useCallback caches a function definition. So this is an example of a tweets value being wrapped in useMemo, and this value will only update and re-render a component when the fetch recent tweets function returns a different value. And then useCallback, again, this is great for function definitions. So if you think about a React component, anytime anything changes, it's going to re-render, and that means essentially reload. And so if that function isn't wrapped in useCallback, then every single time the count value changes, the child component as well as the parent component will re-render. But useCallback helps us to basically only re-render the parent component without affecting the child. And so it's a great way to basically cache data and also just avoid unnecessary unnecessary performance issues in your code base. This also comes with a few problems, like making sure that you don't overuse it. I've seen components that have so many of these hooks. And I think because of what they do, there's a tendency to try and over-optimize and wrap every single function in your code inside a useCallback or a useMemo. So it's one of those things that you have to kind of watch out for. They could also have a counter effect. So if you put a particularly large function or value inside one of these hooks, then you actually find that you're increasing memory over time because you're keeping a large value stored in memory. And again, that leads to performance issues. The final hook I'll look at, the final older hook, it's not quite old, but is use context. And this essentially helps you to pass values across many different components. So if you think about a React application, it could have 100 components. And if you want one single value to be available to all those components, the alternative to this hook is to pass that down through all the props, from the parents to the parent to the parent to the child to the child to the child. And that means that those will re-render every single, if a parent state changes, then the child will re-render, and it's called prop drilling. And it just makes could make your application significantly slower than you need it to be. So use context allows you to pass in a single value across multiple components, and it's particularly useful with applications that have a complex component hierarchy. And this is an example of how it's used. So inside the child, you're passing in a title or assigning a title to a use context from a parent, and it's as simple as this. Funny enough, React has introduced, this is a little redundant because React has just introduced a new feature called the React compiler, which completely replaces these two hooks. But yeah. And then custom hooks quickly. So these allow you to basically create specific functionality or specific functions for specific purposes within your app. So if you want to share complex logic across your application, or if you have a third-party library that you're integrating with, and you want to avoid, say, new developers having to understand how those libraries work, you would just abstract that logic away inside a custom hook, and nobody needs to know how the third-party library is working. And then finally, these are great for testing. So this is a quick example of a use toggle hook. I've said the word use many, many times already. So this basically returns a method called toggle, and then is toggled, which is a true or false value, and you use this for like a form, for example, in your application. All right, so now the fun stuff. React 19 was recently introduced, or recently released a few new hooks back in February. Use optimistic is the first one. The second one, use, is a very interesting name choice. And then use form status and use form state. So I will be doing a quick demo of these 4 hooks. But firstly, just to get into how they work. So use optimistic. If you use like Instagram and Twitter, I'm sure we all use Instagram and Twitter here, but if you do, like if you like a picture on Instagram, you notice that you get the red heart immediately, and that is basically what you would call an optimistic update. So this is returning a response, like a success response to the user as soon as there's an interaction, in the hopes that the server will respond with a success. So if you need to update your, say, a forum or anything on your UI and you want the user to get immediate feedback, you could use this hook potentially. Kind of gonna go through these. And then use, this replaces a few hooks that we've recently looked at. So this is a great hook because it actually has 3 functionalities in one hook. So if you think of promises in React and context in React, it basically replaces the use context hook that we just looked at, and it also allows you to pass in promises. So essentially what this hook does is it returns a value from anything that needs to be, a resource that needs to be resolved. So if you think a promise needs to return a value, context needs to return a value, you could use this hook. So this is it being used for the purpose of the context. Again, we saw use context hook, and this replaces that completely. And then use promise, again, it's just an equivalent of having const data, then assigning it to a promise and awaiting that promise. And then the great thing about this hook as well is that you can use it inside conditionals and loops, which is one of the rules, which is an existing rule of hooks in React, where you have to use them at the top level of your component. And then finally, the last 2 are basically help you to handle like native form control, so validating forms and accessing the state of forms. And yeah, that is what this doesn't take in any parameters, and it returns pending, method, data, and action. And yeah, when I do the demo, yeah, so this is a quick look at how it works. You can see that the pending value there is being used to disable the button when the form is submitted. So it's nice to have that control over your forms. And then finally, this one, which took me a long time to wrap my head around. This, again, just helps you manage the state of your form. So you can access state that has just been submitted. So if I click submit on a form, I can access that state, and I can it also returns a new action to me that I can then decide that I pass into the form. But yeah, when I do the demo, this will all make sense. Again, this is how this works. And then I'm just gonna connect that. Please work. Okay, so the very first hook, use optimistic. So again, this is a very bad version of Twitter, but say I have a list of tweets here, and then I have a quick, just an input form with a post button. So on the left, if you can see the code clearly, I just have a deliver. Oh no. This is going to be very tough. Okay, I'll try not to move the laptop. Yeah, so deliver tweets is just an async function. It's basically mocking an API call, and it's returning a promise and resolving after 2 seconds. And then I have my hook right here, use optimistic, which takes in my current state, and then also again, an update function. And the update function takes in current state again and also my new value. And what it does is basically merges those two values together. So I'm going to, what should I say? Thank you. Twinkle, twinkle. And then I post, and you see that updates the UI immediately, even though the promise is actually returning or resolving after 2 seconds. So that's essentially how it works. And then you can also make this a little more flexible and what I've done here is just I'm controlling the color of the text with the posting status of true or false. So if I say little star and I post that, you see the text is gray for a second, which kind of represents what's an API call, like what the loading state of an API call. And then once that's done, it posts. And then if the promise or API was to fail, then I would reject that. So I've set this to reject, and then what will happen is I'll tweet, and then it will basically be removed from the form once it's rejected. So twinkle, twinkle, little star. How I wonder what you are. So post, that happens for a few seconds, and then you see that it's gone. So that is great for basically enhancing your user experience and like basically just making for a faster and more responsive application. And then on to the next hook, the fun one, use. So I'm only demonstrating it with a promise, not the context. So here we have what we would typically have in a React component. So we have loading states, which is currently set to false. Then we have a state message, which is empty. And then in my use effect, I'm making an API call, fetch message, which is also down here just as a set timeout. And then finally setting that loading state to false once I'm done. And then here I'm just returning downloading message once the page is loading, and then once that has returned a message to me, I display the message. So this is how we would currently do things now. With the use hook, I can essentially get rid of all of this code. And, no, not yet. Get rid of that too. And almost done. Okay, this was not meant to happen. Okay. Oh, thank you very much. Okay, perfect. So as we can see, oh no, that's not working. Oh, sorry, I have it in the wrong place, my bad, okay. Yeah, these are small caveats with these new hooks. Okay, so yeah, we can see that it does the exact same thing. So it sets downloading message and then returns the message as good evening. And essentially what is happening is this line here takes in a promise, fetch message, and once that promise resolves, it's the value that it returns is assigned to message. And it essentially combines the use effect hook, the use effect hook and like a data fetching API or fetch API into one hook. And it also replaces use context. So it has many, many benefits, and it helps to reduce your code base significantly, which is always a plus. The caveat here is that you have to kind of wrap this in a suspense to capture that loading states. And if you would have an error, you could use an error boundary in React to catch those errors. Okay. Use form status. Again, we saw pending showing on the slide earlier. So I have a simple form here, and I'm just capturing this pending value from the hook, which takes in no parameters. And then I'm disabling the button based on this. I'm also controlling it using pending. So submitting changes to submitting when it's pending, and then submit when it's done, which we already kind of do. So Dara. And then I can also access the states as I'm submitting as well using the data property that's returned. So this returns a status object, and yeah, that is essentially what it does. Again, there are many libraries that kind of already do the same thing, but React is trying to be better. So, and then finally, use form state. This is quite nice because it allows you to access like form state before you have done anything. So essentially, it takes in an action, and these actions are another new feature in React, which basically I kind of replaced the onSubmit method that we have on forms. And so my form action is basically what my form does. So over here, again, just a form that returns success true and then success false if the name is not Dara. And what that allows me to do is I also can access the form states over here on line 24. I can access form states and form success before I've actually submitted this form. So if I say the name is Dara, this just changes to yay. Because yeah, I've changed that using the success value from the form. So yeah, that is a quick demo of, okay, goes back in here. Oops. Okay. So yeah, that is how those new hooks work in React. So just to close off, looking at the old versus the new. Oops. Okay, I think it just needs to. Yeah, so I think just like a few of my thoughts, I think it's interesting that the use hook has like a 3-in-1 approach, solving 3 different problems. It also breaks one traditional rule of hooks, which is they must be at the top level of your component. And so that could potentially suggest having more flexibility with hooks in general over time. The new use form status and use form hooks, they're solving like a major pain point of developers, which is like handling and validating forms. Although there are like lots of existing libraries that already do similar things. So although we might rely less on these libraries, we might also just stick to them, because with those hooks, you kind of have to use them in tandem for it to work. So you kind of have to use optimistic, use form status, and use form states like all in one for it to really make sense within your application. And then also there are multiple caveats. So like with the use form states hook, it has to be used within a form tag, which is fair, but it also has to be used. It can't be used, or it doesn't apply to forms that are within the same component. So you have to wrap the child components within a parent form, and it's just all of those little bits and pieces here. So it's just if you're refactoring an application to use these, you have to be extra careful. And yeah, the like React ecosystem is changing. Like I said earlier, the React compiler completely replaces use memo and use context and just caches and memoizes internally. So we might just need to use hooks less and less over time, which is counter to this whole talk, but yeah. And yeah, this is a tweet that kind of summarizes essentially what I've just shared, that there's just a lot of change happening at the moment within the React ecosystem, hooks being replaced by new hooks, but also hooks being replaced entirely. And yeah, it's exciting. So thank you.
I can't wait to use. So yeah, it must have been kind of a fun talk to prepare, especially with all these demos. Can we access those demos?
Yes, but they're in the experimental version, so you need to import like React experimental.
Right.
Yeah.
I see.
Use them at the moment. To use them at the moment. Yeah.
To use all of them. So which one was your favorite?
I think.
Why did they call it that?
I don't know. I think use resolved might have been a better name, but I think they called it use because it kind of solves multiple problems, so it's less limiting. And I think that was use was my favorite.
Yeah.
Just because of how much flexibility it has and how much it replaces. It's also great that you can use it. Gosh, this word. Within like conditionals and if statements, so you don't need to have it at the top level anymore. And then it also does the data fetching immediately. You load a component, so you don't need use effects anymore. So yeah.
Yeah, which I'm personally always happy to see the back of, but don't know about any of you. If it's possible to not use effects. Yeah, that was really amazing. Has anyone got questions? Come on. I'll let you think for a little bit longer. So one thing I was wondering whilst I was watching this was like, do you think that, do you think that the React team are developing for users or for developers more by making these hooks?
That's a really interesting question. I would say developers more, just because a lot of this, firstly, the benefits point to allowing us to like reduce our code base, increase performance, although there are hooks that already increase performance, but I think majority of the new ones, for example, use form states and use form status, an end user has like no idea what the benefits of those are. They just see a form. Of course, optimistic updates are good as well, but I think a lot of it is geared more towards increasing like developer workflow, developer experience, and coding speed in general.
Yeah, right. And maybe almost like trying to increase reliance on React instead of external libraries as well.
Exactly.
Kind of keeping people in the fold now.
Yeah, and I think they're probably gonna, I don't know if there will be a significant reduction in the use of external libraries, because like I said, these hooks are solving one thing here, one thing there, and like a library like React Hook Form does many different things for you. So I guess people will kind of transition to either one, but depending on personal preferences.
And like I suppose if you have like a greenfield project, that's going to be fine for it. But if you're like working on a massive monorepo that's really old, maybe don't refactor the whole thing. Yeah. So that was going to be my next question actually, was like, are you planning on using them anytime soon? Like which ones maybe have you already used, or which ones do, well, obviously it's got the experimental flag, but which, like, do you plan to actually refactor anything, or do you want to like wait until you really need an optimistic update or something in order to get a better user experience?
Yeah, I think I've only played around with them, haven't used them in any like real life production apps. But I think again, like I would probably most likely be using the use hook, because the other ones are very specific to, I guess, forms. Whereas that one handles many different things, like specifically data fetching. I think it's great for just having a one-liner, even though you need your suspense and your error boundary. It just simplifies your code a lot. So that one.
Arguably, you should all have suspense and error boundaries wrapping your code anyway. But yeah, that's what the React team would probably tell you. And to some extent, it is true. Because I think we're used to trying to wait inside the component rather than wrapping the parent in the suspense. But actually, once you get used to that pattern, then you can kind of trust that you can at least partially load things. And yeah, I suppose the final thing that occurred to me is a lot of it seems to be geared up to like interleaving server-side rendering with asynchronous functionality, right? So like, if you have to wrap something in a suspense hook that has the use hook in it, then that can be loading whilst the rest of your potentially statically generated website can already be there. So do you think it's like they are building it with that in mind?
Yeah, I think so. I think specifically with like, I'm not sure which one it was, maybe use optimistic. And there's also like a use transition hook, which allows you to update your UI and have other things loading, and like without affecting your page performance of the actions that are happening in your page. So, I mean, I'm not sure specifically if that was their intention, but I think it does solve that problem. So
maybe we don't need Next anymore.
Good point.
No, controversial point. But given that they're already using React 19 actually under the hood, right? Yeah. I suppose, has anyone been inspired with a question? Yes. Great. We'll bring you a mic. If you say it, I'll repeat it so everyone online later can hear.
So you mentioned that you're not working that much on the like the part that we see of Spotify, the good part. So where would you use React in this case, like what you showed? Is there somewhere else that is applicable?
Yeah, so Spotify has a lot of internal teams, and they also have a lot of internal products. So one of the products that my team manages is a web app that allows other teams to create test Spotify accounts and use that for like QA, and like if there's a new feature that they've built, they want to create a test account to test that feature. So we have React apps, internal React apps, where we would use all of these features.
I see, that's very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really cool. Oh, more questions. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, what are some of your tips on keeping up to date with all of the new features in React? Aside from events like this, are there places to look, things to look out for, so we can keep in the loop?
Yeah, great question. I guess I would recommend the React docs. I guess Twitter as well, which is quite good for like tech updates, depending on if you're following the right pages and accounts. I didn't really learn that. But yeah, Twitter is helpful, and the React documentation is great. I think they have a blog where they post these updates. But just generally, like front-end blogs, tons and tons of them have articles on all of these new React features already. I think also Reddit, surprisingly, has some good content as well. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a great one called, I think, is it React.js Weekly? Can someone correct me if I've said that wrong? And that one's really good as well. But also, yeah, the React blog itself, like I think you can even subscribe to just the blog updates, and then that's their official release notes and stuff, right?
Exactly.
And they've put a really good summary of this exact stuff up there. We had one more question, at least. Has it now disappeared? Was there one more? Yes.
Hi, thank you. My question is rather, when would you use layout effect? I mean, you've mentioned use effect, and I've hardly see use layout effect. So when would you use it?
Yeah, great question. I haven't used it personally, but essentially it's like a different version of use effect, and allows you to render data before your browser like paints the page. So if you want to kind of like measure the height of the window, for example, you would put that inside use layout effect. So it actually renders before your use effect.
It's a dangerous one though, because it can block the rendering of your entire application if you're not careful. I've also barely used that one, so I'm glad you could just remember. I was going to ask you about use reducer briefly. Have you ever found a use case for that?
No, actually, not really. I guess it's good when you have when you're managing complex state. But I think I just tend to stick to the ones I use most regularly, or like use effect, use state.
Yeah, the classics, the golden oldies. Soon to be use. Maybe they'll all just fold into use one day. That's kind of be nice, wouldn't it? So I think we've still got time for more drinks, more chatting. I hope you guys will stick around. If you have, we've got a few. Oh yeah, got a few extra announcements and things. Basically, if you want to come to one of these events again, please feel free to subscribe. You can kind of zoom in on this QR code, and it will give you an array of ways to keep in touch with us. First of all, thank you, Dara. Incredible stuff. So I think we have a raffle in a minute. I'm just going to mention we've got a sister group called Design Systems London. So if any of you do design work, UX, UI, feel free to follow that community. The next event for that is actually sold out, but there is a waiting list. But if you want to get on the next one, then follow us and Design Systems London. It's a very popular sister community. So before we jump to the mezzanine for some final chats, some people have won some things. So I'm going to surprise you with, basically the way we've done it is like, we know everyone who's attending. We've got a random generator, number generator. Everyone's got a number next to the name. You have got no control over that number. So I basically now press a button which will randomly choose a number between 1 and the number of people in this room. And hopefully the person whose number it is actually bothered to turn up. But if not, then the ticket goes back in the hat. But we need to consent to our data being processed for a random number generator. Just Google it. Wait for it. Oh my God.
That's fine.
Wait. Can I use the Excel function
Yeah, just
math.random? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 55. So who's 55? Let's see. A late person. Oh, what's happened? A new tab just opened. It's 30. Kristen Buchanan. You get a free prize. Yeah, come up. Oh no, we'll bring it to you, You get a bag full of stash. And there's one more number, which is Hannah McConan. Hannah McConan? Or Mackinnon? Sorry if I butchered your name. Okay, now, second chance goes to Gabriella Ehrenbrink. Gabriella Ehrenbrink. No, also left.
Next one.
One more.
18. Rachel.
I can't read that from here. Rachel Newman. Yay! Thanks to all the people that didn't turn up because they gave us second chances to win. But most of all, thanks to you guys because, yeah, it is a community event. Like, we're here for each other. I love that you guys came. I love that, yeah, you bore with us through like all of the thick and thin of our various technical disasters. And yeah, we're all stronger for it. So thank you very much.